Hello and welcome to the Power by Rock podcast. I'm excited because today we have two incredible guests on our show as part of our Indie Spotlight series that I want to make a recurring part of the Power by Rock podcast. First up, we'll be speaking with Zhong Yuxin from the Chinese-born, Austrian-based rock band, the Sino Hearts, about the music, his incredible backstory, and some other interesting questions. You'll also get to hear a song from them before the end of our segment as well. After that, I'll be speaking with Josh Courtright from Room 6 YouTube channel to talk about how he helps shine a spotlight on indie music here in Las Vegas. So make sure to stick around until the end because both guests are fantastic, and I think you really want to hear more about both of them. Welcome to Season 4 of the Powered by Rock podcast. We'll bring you the best stories in rock music with a focus on highlighting independent rock musicians and their music from all over the world. No, rock music isn't dead. It's getting better and better. It's just time for you to start paying attention again. With that said, let's get this party started.
The mountain's gonna rise and fall by me.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Powered by Rock podcast. It's my pleasure to be speaking with Zhong Yuxin of the Austrian-based rock band, the Sino Hearts today. Zhong is the lead singer of the band, and from what I understand, you now live in Austria, but you're originally from Beijing, China, which is pretty cool. Hey Zhong, welcome to the show.
Hey man, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming to the show. I know it's very early in Austria. It's Austria where you're from, like right now, right?
No, right now, I'm back in Beijing.
Oh,
Yeah, for like the first half of this year, probably.
okay.
So yeah.
I think you were in Austria the last time I talked to you or
Yes,
something,
yes. Last year I was there for like a European, like a punk the festival. So we did like basically in Italy, and then like I was like in Austria and in Germany, and then back to Asia. So.
That's very cool. Yeah, I've been
Yeah.
to Beijing once, but it was only for about 5 hours. Been to China
Okay.
about 6 times, but only Beijing once.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
So it's obviously a pretty interesting aspect of rock culture that somebody from China actually, and especially with the sound that you have, it's pretty remarkable. I think it's incredibly good. So I just want to know, how did you get into rock music while growing up in China in the first place? I've been to China. I've never seen anybody listen to or hear or talk about rock music there.
Yeah, I think it's all start around like early 2000, like when I was like in middle school, and I remember at that time was like maybe this the second or third like global punk revival thing, like the pop punk with like the Green Day or the Blink-182 and stuff.
Sure.
And I remember like NoFX actually played in Beijing like around like early 2000, and also like bunch of any other bands. And when I was young, and I saw like some like at that time like a new wave kind of like punk bands which call like Brain Failure. Like I think they got signed by Rancid or something back then, and they went to the Warped Tour and
Sure.
became quite international. And at that time, I was like, okay, it was pretty new for me, and I never thought about like, okay, an Asia band could do it in this way, kind of like high standard back
Sure.
in the '90s. So like, I just thought, okay, yeah, maybe, it's also another like new way of thinking. So and then like on another hand, there was like a lots of like CDs coming from the outside to China for like recycling, like landfills, whatever. So I think it's still like happening nowadays, like in Indonesia or any other like developing countries. Like they're buying this kind of like resources from the Western world and like resell it in their own like system.
Sure.
So I think like back then I got a lot of like the newest CDs of everything. So I learned from there until I got opportunity to study abroad, like Austria, and like continue everything in the real world. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very interesting that you mentioned kind of like the punk scene being the Kickstarter essentially for that music industry, or
Yes.
for your background and stuff. Because if I listen to your music, I don't necessarily get like a late 90s, early 2000s punk vibe. I get more like a 70s fuzz rock, or maybe even like the British rock kind of like
Yes.
80s and early 90s British rock sound. So are there other influences other than the punk sounds and punks bands that you just mentioned that kind of touch what you guys' sound is like now?
Yes, because like and then I was like living in Europe, and then like I just found out, okay, and if you just listen to like those sort of like mainstream rock bands, kind of like embarrass people, and then like especially like in a city like Vienna, where like every band's like been ever tour like every year, and
Yeah.
you can see like all kinds of bands. And then it's like I started like digging all kinds of like 70s bands. And previously I played as bass player at the band called Frankenstyle, like which was like a 77 punk bands, and we opened for like the Addicts, UK Subs, the Vibrators, this kind of thing. Also, like when I was on tour, like with Austrian Ramones core band, D Cracks, and I got totally the brainwashed by the the power of the Ramones, and yeah, it's kind of like the mixture. Like when I start with the Sino Hearts, so I just want to like combine this kind of like a analog 70s vibe of musicality, this like new way of like doing everything, and that's where everything comes from. So
Yeah. And I think it's going to be pretty interesting when people actually hear the song that we're going to play later, that,
yeah,
when I say like, Chinese rock band, a lot of people aren't going to expect what they actually hear from you guys, I don't think, because it's a really cool sound. And when Noah from Otitis Media Records sent me
yeah,
the album, he was like, check this out. This kid Zhong from Beijing is amazing. And we released his album twice, like 2 albums in a row now. And I listened to it and I was like, okay, yeah. So I listened to it and I was like, holy shit, this is really good. Like this isn't just like good like indie music. This is like good like really high level rock music. So
yeah.
this
Thanks.
is the kind of stuff that I live for. When I find a band or somebody mentions a band to me that has this high quality, very professional sound, but it's also like no one's ever heard of you, but you're like this diamond in the rough. And especially with a cool background, like you're from China versus, you're from
Yes.
Kentucky or something. It's a
Yeah, yeah, kind of
much
same.
cooler story to me.
Yes.
So let me ask you this. This might kind of help people understand, maybe in a more narrow
Yep.
field. What is the top 3 favorite albums you have? Rock albums, let's say, since this is a rock-based show. You might like other music, and that's totally fine. But what are your
Yep.
top 3 favorite rock albums of all time?
Yeah, I think number one could be the Johnny Thunders and the Heartbreakers, RAMF. Also,
Okay.
like I think the second could be uh like the Beatles, like the first one, like when like every yeah. Also, like I think the third maybe the Boys, like the English, the punk band, the Boys, and their
Yeah.
self-title. I think it's
Okay.
my top three. Yeah.
That's very
Yeah,
cool. Yeah.
personally, I'm really kind of like into punk rock for a, a very long time, and then I started listening to like something new, like in the last maybe 3 years, like during the pandemic. So like I listen to a lot of like indie rocks or whatever, but normally just 60s and 70s rock.
Yeah,
Base.
and I
Yeah.
think that's a pretty good indication of how you got your sound, because I think, I mean, even if you think of like the early Beatles songs, the Beatlemania, all that hysteria that was going around,
Yes.
it's a very
Yes.
similar sound to that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And you've even got the oohs and the ahs and the melodies and all that harmony stuff in there. So I think it's pretty
Yes.
cool.
Yeah.
Let's talk
Thanks.
about, you guys have played, like you said, you've played kind of a little bit all over. So I'm curious,
Yes.
what's kind of like the coolest place you played, the biggest venue, or the coolest show, or just the most fun you've ever had at a show, and why was it awesome?
Yeah, so last summer, like we play at the Italian, like kind of like Ramones fan based like open air punk rock festival called Punk Rock Raduno in Bergamo, Italy. And I remember like it was like one of the hardest travel experience I'd ever had
Yeah.
because last year was like the Chinese hardest lockdown ever, and the atmosphere was kind of like cultural revolution, like in the new age.
Yeah.
And if I speak or if I talk in English on the streets and somebody will point the finger at me, I was like, okay, what the hell? Also,
Yeah.
like the government have like some kind of like policy is like if you're uh like going abroad, you must have an a proper like excuse,
Yeah.
a proper reason. So like
Yeah.
which effect like which lead like the majority of the people still like locked in the country and they're not allowed to be out.
Yeah.
So it's like, but we have to play, so I have to be out. So I got the invitation letter, everything from the Italian the company. So like when I just at the airport, and they're kind of like inspector at, at the border. Like it reminds me of like maybe 20 years ago when I went to Hong Kong. It was like the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they asked me, okay, yeah, what do you do like abroad? It's okay, I'm just yes for working. I'm like, okay, could for what reasons? Like, oh, I'm attending to like a cultural activity and blah blah blah. They
Yeah.
okay, like can I see like your documents? Of course, but it's all in Italian. His
Yeah.
his Chinese. I'm just like it doesn't make any sense. Like hey, but I don't like the inspector like caught out some like his colleagues and like they like five dudes checking an Italian the documents and like oh okay yeah you can be out. I think oh
Yeah.
okay yeah and then like on the same side. So when the plane like land in Germany and I've been asked by the German the police at the border. Okay, okay, what do you do in Europe? So and then I repeated like the same, but the policeman just very curious. Like he insists to ask, okay, what kind of music are you playing? So punk rock, and then my new record's gonna be out in your country like in 3 weeks or something. I said, yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. Welcome to Europe. Welcome to Germany. And then like
Yeah.
that was like everything's fine then. And then that was like in Europe. But in Asia it was like in Japan because like for the musician or rock and roll the fever people. I mean, Japan is always like a dream place.
Yeah.
I remember it's like around like maybe 5 years ago we did a Japan tour. We got invited by like T-Generic based like Tokyo label called Target Earth Record, and they put out like all the cool the garage the punk bands. And then like we're on their label too, and then like I was like after our show and I was like sitting with other guys like they're like the legends from the 90s like in the Japanese scene. I'm like, hey
Yeah.
Joe, we're looking for the guys just like you like since the 90s, but we never found one so, until now. But at the same time like we're on a round table. I was with our like Chinese drummer and Austrian the bass player. So and then I talk to our Austrian dudes like in the German, talk to Chinese like in Chinese, and talk to Japanese in English at the same time. And all the Japanese are, oh my god, what
Yeah.
yeah, what language are you talking to? It's like okay, yeah. Are you talking German? Yeah, I do a little bit German, so yeah, that was like.
Yeah.
But I think the scene in Japan just incredible. Like everybody knows what you're doing, and they're just all of them kind of like nerds, like dressed like 70s or dressed like come from like the Back to Future season 3 or whatever. Yeah, you're like rock and roll episode, whatever. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty fantastic.
That's awesome. Now, I think that's pretty cool because, like, obviously the travel and the situation with COVID and everything, the Chinese government and the tensions
Yes,
across the
crazy
world and the
time.
diplomacy right now is throwing a
Yeah.
lot of things in the blender and causing a lot of issues.
Yes.
I won't speak to that too much because I don't want you to disappear or anything off the street, but
Yeah, yeah,
just being
yeah.
on my podcast. But I do want to talk about the last album you released, which was Lightning the Darkness. So lightning,
Yes.
like as in lighting it up, lightening it up.
Yes.
And you have a new record coming out this year as well. So can you tell the listeners kind of about the musical direction of the last album? Kind of, did you have a sense of what you were trying to accomplish with that album? Because I know it's like, I think that's your second album. And then what do you have kind of coming up on this new album that may be similar but also different for the next one?
Yeah, the last record, it was kind of like a COVID record because the album previously was Mandarin a Go-Go's, kind of like pure like high energetic like punk rock and with a little bit like 60s vibe. I don't like, and I remember like when we record the Go-Go record, it was like in Austria, like in Graz. We were like on tour and having party every day, and like I was like thinking about okay, and the next record should be kind of like remaining like the same kind of genre. I feel like suddenly, out of a sudden, 2020 and the worst and the whole world kind of like tearing apart. I feel like so I just started. Okay, I never listened to like some like so many records in my life. I don't like
Yeah,
yeah, it was like no
keeping busy.
touring, like yeah, like nothing. But I got like a lot of like records I bought over the years, like through the tour. I do like I try to like do like all like combine all kinds of genre like I love like to a box to a package, and it was very complex, like a little bit like complex because like normally I want to like record in Europe because the studio thing like in China was not really proper. Even I recorded like some of those songs in one of the one of the best the studios in Beijing, and like when I Googled it and like he said okay it's yeah it's built like 3 million yuan or whatever. I was like
Yeah,
oh my god, but like actually when I was in the studio saying okay it's okay yeah.
yeah,
And so I just wanted to like combine like indie rock and the 70s and the 60s like in a package. So I work on a lot of like arrangement thing and try with like new drummer and so it's a record and I create some sort of like a new system. So I recorded like in Beijing and got mixed and mastered in Italy and got pressed in Germany and released in Europe and the States,
yeah,
also in Japan. I feel like, but I never found like this record in my hands till I was in Europe last summer. I
nice.
feel like I feel I was like it's all in a sudden, and then like yeah, it's like I like finally after a year of working on that record, I picked them up at like in front of like the Viennese beautiful landfills factory. So yeah, it's like I just pick my records up there. I just thought okay, it's very complicated records. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
but the result or the critics was pretty good, so
yeah.
I received like both the positive and negative thing the critics, so yeah it's good.
Yeah, I think a lot of people when they review albums, they either do it in a very shallow manner or they actually do it in a way that makes sense for a musician to understand it, right? So
Yes.
I tend to do kind of a mixture of a fan looking at it and also a musician looking at it, where it's kind of a little
Yeah.
different. Whereas most people who are reviewing albums usually aren't musicians, which is crazy because they're just journalists. And it's like,
Yes.
how are you to say what's good or what's bad? Because like you don't even know what you're playing. You know what you hear, and that's fine. That's your musical taste. But then it's like you also don't understand a lot of what goes into that record, both like
Yes.
musically, influentially, just chronologically in the history of the entire scope of music and stuff like that. So, when I
Yes.
heard it, I immediately was like, this is something new. It's something different, but it's also familiar, which is
Yes.
what, a
There's
lot
a
of people
root
try to
inside.
keep doing. And they try to like, do cover songs or recreate stuff to kind of pull up that influence. But you never really had to do that. You just instantly kind of created these songs, and it was like as soon as I heard them, I was like, this is pretty damn good. So
Yeah.
obviously
Thanks.
one of the reasons why you're here today. But
Yeah.
the next album, are you kind of thinking that it's going to go in the same direction as the last album? Or are you going to kind of mix it up again, or you just kind of see how it goes? I mean, I think it's already recorded, right?
Yes. It's been recorded also like last year, like before I fly to Europe.
Mm-hmm.
So and then like, but there is like a new element because from that records we've got a new guitarist from the States. So like, but he's back to the States, and he was in a band called the Shirks from Washington D.C. like in the 90s, and like he was
Gotcha.
like teaching in Beijing as some like national university or something. So like he contributed like some like solos
So the
like
next person who has to play those
on the
live is
both
going to be
records.
screwed, is what you're saying?
Yeah, and then like and then no, but it's okay because and next records it sounds like more like rock and roll, but it's to another level. So like more like it's more like solid records, like but it's also a like continuation of the last record. So but
Gotcha.
in a better level. So yeah,
Nice.
it's kind of
Taking it
yeah, it's
taking it up a step,
yeah.
huh?
Yes, yes. I think it's kind of like maybe it's gonna be the best records so far of we've ever done. Yeah.
Sweet.
Now still like mastering in Italy. So yeah, it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be a mixture between like 70s and this also like this also like the 80s like post like post punk like the Smith also like 90s pop or something. It's gonna be cool, like pop rock, but like more like indie, indie punk, like whatever you name it. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
gonna
hard
be
to
cool.
figure out what it's called until it comes out, and you're like, I kind of listen. This is how I hear it. So everybody has a different way
Yes,
to call something, right?
yes,
So I do want to give obviously people a taste of what your music is like. So we're gonna play the song "Another End of the World." So can you tell me what the song is about, and what it means to you, and how you put it on the last album?
yeah. I mean, this song it was like the oldest song I ever done, like of our last record because I wrote it like around like 10 years ago because at that time it was like a rumor of like Maya apocalypse, whatever, like
Yeah,
yeah, 2012. I remember, and then it's like, and then I remember I saw an open air concert of Social Distortion that summer. I don't know, like I just want to like do like a Social Distortion thing and about this kind of is everything comes to the end and I was in Austria and then like I remember the so-called on the so-called like apocalyptic day I was like on a bus like in middle of nowhere in Austria. I know like the driver he was like having some like issues so like he just dropped all the passengers off the bus and I was like it was like before the Christmas and there's like nothing on the highway so I was like and I'm a Chinese dude walking on the highway and there's like nobody else. And I was like, okay, so I should just write a song about it. But later on, it life just goes on and there's nothing happened. I was like so, I feel like so that disappointed. It's like okay, and the world's still there. And then and from last record at the songwriting parts, I was like, okay, maybe I should try rearrange the song and to like this kind of era because kind of like familiar time, also like the media, blah blah blah, like every day,
Yeah.
and I just did that song. Yeah, it's kind of like relief or whatever. Finally, I just put it out, and this kind of apocalyptic thing, it's yeah, it's over, or
Yeah.
hope so.
Well, it's funny because it's always going to be another one until it actually then does cause the end of the world, right? And then then it'll be like, oh,
Yeah,
that's the one.
yes, maybe this year. Yeah, you know, like this year, all the media said, okay, the third war is gonna like start out. What,
Yeah.
like sometimes that's okay. Yeah, here we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's pretty much all I got for you. But do you have any shout outs or anything else you want to promote other than, what you obviously we talked about the new record coming out this year? Are you guys going to go on tour this summer or anything as well?
Probably next year, I'll do like another round of the world touring thing. I would be combining the two records at the same time and organizing like a like a proper touring thing. Because this year I'm gonna do like a German records, and like I'll sing like in German, like in Viennese German, and do like something new. And then I can do like and then I can be on tour for a year or 2 years. So
Nice.
yeah, it's gonna be okay.
A busy future that you have in store for yourself then.
Yes, I think I always want to try that because uh, there's nobody ever done this before, and but like last record, Lighting of Darkness, I also recorded like a whole Mandarin version of this record, and
Gotcha.
still awaited to be released like sometime either this year or next year, because I never done it before. But it sounds good, but it sounds also like far away kind of thing. I
Yeah.
don't know if it works on the Chinese market, but well, I'll give a shot, of
Well,
course.
then I might be speaking to the next huge Chinese rock star, right? So you might be the most successful Chinese rock star in the history of the world by the time this album comes out.
I hope not. It's because I keep very extremely low key in China. So, but
Yeah.
I play a lot of shows previously, and our album was like released like for the Chinese market through like one of the mainstream record company. Not before you can listen to our records also on Air China or whatever on the plane or kind of system. But I never did anything like interview like in Chinese or talk what I thought about anything. I just stay very very low and I just hide. So it's gonna be okay. So yeah, as long as I do this way, I'll be safe.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, I do want to thank you very much, Zhang, for stopping by and checking in with us to help us learn more about the Sino Hearts and what's on the horizon. Guys, I'm going to actually play the song Another End of the World from the Sino Hearts. So make sure to go to the show notes below this and check out all the links to the music and social media as well. And here we go. This is Another End of the World from the Sino Hearts.
Fading bed got me going up and down, listening to the raving sound. Trying to get my feet back on the ground, left to weep alone. The white lights were gone and on when you're gone. Eyes clean and a ground, stirring up the blood of Babylon to get the soul grown. My heart can't seem
Reverend Guitars embodies the idea that every run of scorching lead and every roll of finger-picked twang deserve the same passion and commitment to quality. Whether you're selling out arenas or playing in your living room, we know that what makes an instrument powerful is when players wield them to create something remarkable. A melody that moves mountains, a riff that just won't quit. We want to be there in your hands when that happens. For us, that means staying true to what we believe. Somewhere along the road of electric guitar history, it became a crazy idea that guitar makers should craft guitars with the same sense of purpose and passion, whether they're played in a bedroom or an arena. If that's a wild idea, then we're in the right place, carrying 6 strings and an attitude, and we're in good company. Reverend Guitars. Well played.
Running your own music career is incredibly difficult. Trying to get people to like, share, comment, listen, follow, it's all just overwhelming. Most musicians give up before they ever achieve success, and that's the worst. If you're looking for a better way to grow your music career, head to DIYrockcareer.com for some absolutely free training. It costs you nothing, and it could be the difference between hitting your goals and quitting your dream. Go to DIYrockcareer.com today by clicking the link below this episode.
Then I lost my way.
Welcome back to the Powered by Rock podcast, everybody. I'm here with Joshua Courtright from the Room 6 YouTube channel. He does a weekly show that highlights bands from the Las Vegas music scene, does album and concert reviews, and so much more. Hey, Joshua, welcome to the show.
Hey, welcome to Room 6.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. I mean, we've been kind of having conversations via email for a couple months now, and obviously with the Christmas break and some other stuff going on, it's been a while, but finally good to actually meet you. We haven't even met in person, and we live in the same city, but I'm sure that will happen very soon. But I'm really interested because I've been kind of following what you do on Room 6 for a while, and you know, you have a lot of the bands that I talk to from the Las Vegas scene on your show as well. But give me an idea, like, so people who are not like obviously aware of what Room 6 is, give a bit about background about what Room 6 is, what you kind of, why you created it, and what you're kind of envision for basically the whole, you know, down the road kind of future track for it.
Sure. Room 6 started because after the last time a band broke up, I did music in this town for over a decade, and I did the, like, I want to be a solo artist, I want to be a band, blah blah blah. After the last time a band broke up, I was kind of done loading gear at 2 a.m, and at the time I had like a 4 or 5 year old kid, and I decided, okay, I'm gonna take a hiatus. And then one thing led to another, and suddenly I was on unemployment, and then, you know, and I started looking at YouTube, realizing I want to do something to help the local scene, and without going to every single show. I just can't do it.
Yeah,
my living room wallet can't handle it. You know? Yeah. And I actually started looking at it, going, you know, hey, what if I've got a lot of things that, with a little bit of outlay money wise and a little bit of effort, I can convert into what I'm seeing on YouTube. And you start paying attention to what people are using and stuff. Yeah. And that became, okay, I'm going to do this. It is still strictly a hobby at this point, 4 years later, because I'm not, leaving a job for it kind of thing.
For sure.
Which, by the way, go to room6.shop, buy some merch. But I'm trying to put out a professional product that is sorely lacking and missing for the local music scene, or at least it was. I'm seeing a lot of stuff lately from people such as yourself, where I'm like, oh, cool. Now there's other avenues as well, and where we're starting to, like you said, kind of share the same pool of people. Though you came to my attention actually because of the Dollheads, who I have on the channel, and doing my research for their interview, came across the interview you did with them. And so that I was like, how have we never met? Why have I, just learning about you. So like you said, we've kind of been circling each other. You've shown up at shows that I was going to go to and I couldn't. And then I see something, I'm like, that would have been the time. So, but Room 6, it has changed over the years from just me trying to come up with content to now me trying to curate this community that is, they've been on the show, and they've we can start doing things that are all around Room 6. And to that end, I'd like to announce on May the 6th, Revenge of the 6th, at Hennessy's Tavern on Fremont, I will be having my second ever Room 6 Rocks showcase. And this one's going to be called Revenge of Room 6 because
nice.
Nerd, Star Wars, and you can see Mandalorian. This is 5 acts that have been on the channel, and they've come on the show, they've performed usually here in Room 6, and this is my thank you to them, and it's a free show for everybody. So if you're not doing anything and you're in the area of Hennessy's, the best way you can find out about it is to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and there'll be updates, of course. But what I'm really trying to do now, thinking about the future, is how can I go beyond Vegas and keep it local? Because I'm not, eventually might move, and then what?
Yeah.
So I to that end, I've been reaching out. I've had a lot of bands from LA and some from Florida. I've had some international virtual stuff. I'm really trying to just grow awareness of the non-national scene and do what I can, while at the same time, not going to every single show.
Yeah. And I know exactly how you feel, because, for example, even if you just stay in Las Vegas and go to 4 to 6 shows a month, you're spending money on parking, you're spending money on the concerts, you're spending money on the alcohol, food, beverage, whatever, merch possibly, and it can rack up. Now then, if you want to go see other bands in other states like California, Arizona, or whatever, you're talking about thousands of dollars per trip potentially, and it adds up pretty quickly. Even if you get, like, I obviously get like a press pass for a lot of the shows that I go to, even with that, I'm still like, man, I just spent $150 last night at a concert, and I didn't even have to pay for the concert.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
You have to start rationalizing, and also there's content. You're getting content, you got to edit it and everything.
Yep.
At least for me, every single thing on YouTube, with the exception of the live streams, I'm editing, and the live streams take care of themselves. But there's all that pre-work, and so you start realizing, like, it's great that everybody wants me to go to their shows and do reviews and and stuff, and it's great for the channel, except suddenly my to-do list is, I'm now working on stuff in March, and I have stuff that's waiting for me to fix to get done and scheduled in April. You start realizing that you have to cut it off somewhere. And that's where, so fortunately I have a very understanding family that lets me, I work very hard to balance and keep everybody happy that I can.
Yeah. And it's kind of the one good way to, obviously I might not look it, but I am getting older now. I'm like 41. I have a 2-year-old son. And once you kind of have that lack of mobility, I should say, or lack of agility as far as what you can do on a weekly basis, it's nice to be able to stay plugged in, but it's also like you have to then start to scale back what you can actually do. It's interesting.
Yeah.
So
I feel like, I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Well, I feel like I missed an important thing when you asked me, but basically why the channel, or what's going on with the channel.
Sure.
The main thing was I wanted to still be in the scene, but how can I bring the scene to me? That's really what it boiled down to. And now you mentioned press pass. That's something I probably should look into getting. But yeah. So anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just basically saying, like, this is, as you get older, your I guess your ability to get fame, fortune, recognition, acknowledgement as like a up and coming artist, or hey, I just started a new band. Like, once you get to a certain age, people stop really giving a shit about that kind of stuff from you. So then it's like, what else do you have to offer? And it's like, oh, well, actually I do this. So like over here, I'm somewhat going to help you. But yeah, I was like, I've known for years that people aren't necessarily going to pay attention to my music career. So I just kind of do that on the side, and everything else business wise and journalist wise, I've been doing for years anyway. So that's something I kind of rolled all up into one for Powered by Rock. And it seems like that's kind of a similar story to you, is musicians that want to keep going, but it's just, the ability to go out and play shows is not as easy as it once was. Like when you're 20, all you got to do is get a day off work and you go play a show. Now it's not that easy.
That gear gets heavier, man.
Yeah.
The first of the showcases that I was talking about, I did at Chiba Hut in the summer, and it's an outdoor thing. And I brought all the gear, And I don't know what
boy.
prompted me to do this, but I weighed myself before and after, and I lost 3 pounds that day.
In May, I
just
mean,
crazy. And I was like, nope.
Yeah, that's 100-degree weather.
No,
for
this
sure
was in
May,
like
so.
this was in summer. This was in summer,
Okay.
like August, and it was just dripping. Just everybody's just dripping. But I just remember going, this wasn't this heavy before. But it is what it is. So, yeah.
Let's
go ahead.
I was gonna say, let's back up and talk about, like, you talked about playing music in the scene, in the Las Vegas local scene for a decade. What kind of music were you playing? What kind of bands were you in? What kind of shows were you playing? What kind of venues were you at and stuff like that?
Right on. It started with open mics, like so many, and I remember doing open mics at the Palms with Michael Soley. So that's a while ago.
Yeah.
And then before that, I had already put out an album of just acoustic singer-songwriter, singing about a girl kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's why I made this line of merch, actually, was because I had to remind myself, turn around occasionally and go touch that stuff,
Yeah.
And I was doing I was thinking, okay, just do my own solo thing, do the covers, do the whatever, but just me. And eventually I started missing being in a band from when I was younger. So I've done the acoustic singer-songwriter thing. I've done the indie pop, indie rock and slightly harder rock stuff. But that's really it. It was always trying to look for that moment where the music stops for a second, right before you're about to stomp on the distortion box, or the beat's about to drop. And that's why the indie rock band was called The Suspense, because of that moment.
Gotcha.
And like eventually you reach a point where it's losing a little bit of the allure, but I still want to be part of things.
Yeah.
And that's why, I went down my path. I wasn't trying to change the world, and I wasn't trying to shock people or come up with the new trend. I was just trying to write good music.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. I mean, so I feel like everybody's got their own flavor, and it's kind of one of those things I ask everybody, like, do you think that people in a band enjoy their own music? And sometimes people are like, even in bands are like, sometimes they hate playing their own songs. And I'm like, I've been playing like the same songs that I've written since high school. And I'm like, I still like these songs. I'm like, I've never had to play them like 30,000 times, like some of these guys might have to, but I'm like, I intentionally wrote music that I like, which maybe nobody else in the world likes, but maybe a couple of people do or whatever. But I feel like if you like the music you play, it doesn't really matter what you make, what kind of sound you have, what genre you stick to. If you can enjoy it and you like listening to it and you like playing it, then that's something you can do forever. I mean, it's like, drawing or anything really, playing a sport. It's like you like doing it, and it's something that I've always liked my own music. I'm like, I don't know why it doesn't sound good to other people, but maybe my voice is just annoying. I have no idea, but that's one of the things I've always found is that's the reason why I keep going back to it, is because I don't hear everything that I want to hear on the radio or, from other bands. So I go down and create something that I think is a little bit fresh on the same kind of level. And you're saying, you're not trying to reinvent the wheel, but you're going to probably create something, your unique experience from all the influences that you have created or, creatively. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I always find that when I write music I want to write, as opposed to trying to write something I think is going to be popular.
Yeah.
It's a whole other thing. And I don't like the stuff I write when I try to write something that's popular.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
People don't either. But
yeah.
I think the bigger question is not do you like the music you wrote, but do you like listening to yourself perform that music? Because that's a whole other thing. I don't like listening to my own recorded stuff a lot, because there's always in the back of your head, well, that's not that's not how I should have done it, or
it could be better. Yeah.
It could be better. That's not what I sound like anymore, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But one of my secret joys is anytime I get, for whatever reason, I get an opportunity to get up and perform something, even if it's just singing a cover with somebody. I love being around people this is a total ego thing, but I love surprising people with the fact that, oh yeah, no, he could do music too.
Yeah.
Like he actually is a musician. I'm like, yeah, this stuff, you know, I didn't just buy guitars to hang on the wall and hang hats on. You know, that's so yeah.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. That's you know, I have no problems performing, and most musicians, especially if you've ever been a lead singer, don't have a problem performing. But it is definitely an ego thing. It's like, oh yeah, go up to karaoke and just like start belting it out when everybody else is struggling to sing like the simplest songs, and you're like, oh my god, let me go and just put on like a bit harder of a song and shred you to pieces right now.
Yeah, I do. Karaoke for me is a guilty pleasure that I don't do anymore unless I'm like, my wife and I went on our first ever cruise, and my kid, sorry, my family and I went on a first ever cruise, and my wife and I would go out, you know, during the nights while the kid was just like, I'm going to stay in the room. We would go look for some stuff, and there was karaoke. So of course I had to get up and do a song, and the selection wasn't the greatest. So I had to go to like my fourth or my fifth usual song, but it was still kind of, you know, you're hanging out, you're talking to people, you're meeting strangers, and you're like, oh, excuse me, I gotta go do a thing. And then you get up and you nail, you know, That's Life by Frank Sinatra or something. that moment, there's nothing better to me than, wow, you really can sing. It's like, yeah. I know, and that and $1.50 gets me a candy bar, you know.
Exactly right.
So yeah, you probably have the same thing where when you were done performing, you were more nervous afterwards because you had to go talk to people about it, and you would hear, you know, you had to sit there and be like, thank you, yes, thank you. And,
yeah, it's weird. I'm not great at getting compliments regardless of what it's for. It's like you just kind of deflect it like, oh yeah, no, it's nothing. Like anybody can do this. Like you just kind of brush it off because it's weird to have people say thank you and you did good, and it's like, I'm just doing what I like to do. Like, it doesn't matter if you like it or not.
Yeah, but there's two words, imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
It's so true. It's so real. And especially in musicians and songwriters, we're never satisfied and we're never quite believing because of some metric in our head, whether it's album sales or merch sales or crowd turnout or whatever. There's always something where we're like, yeah, but this would have been nice. And it's I did a video on it early on in the channel's history because I was, again, trying to come up with content, but I was like, I started thinking, what is something that this is another direction that the channel is trying to go to, is looking at new musicians and things they need to know. Not that I ever got famous, not that I've never even been on tour, like it just never happened. But I'm observant and I see certain things and I learn certain things, and I've made and missed out on many mistakes. And the imposter syndrome is so real that it you know, if you're a musician, believe in yourself, because at the end of the day, you have to listen to it and you have to be happy with what you're making.
Yeah, I agree. It's a great point. So I want to get a little bit more kind of into your background with some like quicker questions, so that way we can kind of we can create our own mind judgments of what you're like as a person from some quick facts. And one of the things I like to do is
judge me, wash me.
One of the things I like to do is ask people
wash me in your judgment.
A top 3 or a top 5 or a top favorite of something. But just for the first one, give me your top 3 favorite rock bands or rock musicians of all time.
I'm gonna start. This is one a lot of people wouldn't say. I'm gonna go with Triumph.
Okay.
You're familiar with Triumph?
I'm familiar with them. I don't listen to them, but I know of them.
Right. Well, it's not like I can't remember the last time I listened to them. But when I think of classic rock bands that were not, like, I've always kind of wanted to go slightly left of center in many things, and like I'm not. Yes, I can get into, you know, early and even current Metallica. I can get into Zeppelin. I can get into AC/DC. I can get into all those ones. But I like Triumph because they were unique sound.
Mm-hmm.
It was a sound I couldn't replicate myself singing wise without hurting myself. The songwriting was just solid, and they were well written songs, but somehow they never got, you know, they're not Zeppelin. They're not, you know, they're not the big I don't know. A lot of people don't know who the hell they are,
Sure.
but to me, there was so much passion in it, and a lot of the acts that came out in the '80s and the '90s, like Steelheart and the Nelsons, or Nelson rather, a lot of those ones that were singing the higher register.
Yeah.
I feel like they were influenced by Triumph and bands like that. So they're not my number one pick. I'm not trying to do this in any sort of ranking order for top three, but
yeah,
I'm gonna say Triumph.
Now, correct me if I'm
Sorry,
wrong, but from memory, from what I understand and what I remember of Triumph, is they kind of have a similar sound to like a band like Asia or something like that, right? Kind of like
right. And I don't know the timing.
Pop singer rock band.
Yeah, I don't know where they were in the timing of Asia and Europe and all those. I don't know who came first, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But for me, Triumph is there also because somebody gave me a cassette tape. You see, kids, audio cassette tape. But let's see here. What else? This is a band that they're influenced by previous bands such as what's the name of the band? Crap. Winona's got herself a Big Brown Beaver.
Primus.
What's that band? Crap. Primus. Thank you. I don't know why I was thinking Primus. But yeah, so they're influenced by. You can tell like the songwriting. There's definitely some Primus. There's definitely some of that. We want to make music that rocks, but at the same time makes you go, huh? And it's Clutch.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Clutch is great.
Yeah. Oh god, working out to Clutch always made me happy when I was working out. So that's somewhere in there, number 2, and then number 3, I'm going to go local.
Yep.
Crimson Riot. Riot. They were my headliners at my first showcase on purpose. They were literally the 3rd act or 4th act that I interviewed ever, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, really? It's Roxy Gunn. You're familiar with Crimson Riot?
I am, yeah.
Yeah, so every show, Chris, the bass player, who's pretty much around our age,
yeah,
getting close, he's leaping higher than the drum set,
yeah,
and he's landing on that first downbeat. And it's just everything they do, regardless of the set, they are bringing the high energy. You hate to follow them. I always feel bad for any act that has to follow them.
Yeah,
which is why I had them headline. But yeah, Crimson Riot, Roxy Gunn, Chris, RJ, who is Roxy's brother. RJ replaced her dad, Ryan. So it's always been family for Roxy Gunn Project and for Crimson Riot. I cannot say enough good things about them. They are so supportive of just the entire scene. At every single thing I've ever seen, every single show I've seen them at, as soon as they're done playing, or if they haven't played yet, you're going to see at least Roxy Gunn in front of the stage, just watching the other bands, getting into them, regardless of what genre they're playing. They are, like I said, so super supportive. So that's my top 3 off the top of my head.
Nice. Good. It's good and very diverse group. So that's pretty good. So another quick one. Well, I shouldn't say it's always a quick question. It's never a quick answer, right? Everybody's like, oh, a quick question for you. It's like, well, that is a loaded question because it's never a quick answer. It's always a quick question. But what would you consider the best concert you've ever seen, and why was it awesome?
Ooh, not the best concert I've ever been in, but that I've
seen.
Sure,
yeah, I will go seen as in like was participating in like when you were in the crowd.
Because now that's a different thing.
Yeah, not that you necessarily saw on like YouTube or DVD or something, or VHS as we used to see.
This is going to be a minute here, because I have fond memories of the first concert I ever went to, but that I wasn't in it, I wasn't involved at all, and quite looking back, it was like that wasn't a really good concert at all, and that was at San Diego State's outdoor amphitheater. My first ever band, we went, and it was free. It was like, I think it was free to go see them. It was Gin Blossoms.
Okay.
It was crap, I'm brain farting. Pocket Full of Kryptonite. Spin Doctors. It was Spin Doctors.
Yeah.
It was Cracker. They were on tour together.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and Gin Blossoms were the headliners. Cracker was the middle act, and the opening was what'd I say?
Spin Doctors.
No, I'm sorry. Spin Doctors were headline. And It was weird because the best part of the whole concert was this guy would come out with dreadlocks, playing a hand drum, like a cajon or something, or not a cajon, but a djembe, and he would be like, it's a marvelous night for a moon dance. He was the best part because he was in between each act, and the crowd was into him. For some reason, like with Cracker opened, meh, it was Cracker. They played their set, and everybody was like, yay. And then Gin Blossoms came up. My abiding memory of that set is they had a frog with flashing eyes that they put at the front of the stage, and the singer took some selfies with the crowd and took some selfies with the band and threw some Polaroids. This is back in Polaroid day. Threw Polaroids out into the crowd. I'm like, well, that's cool. Imagine you get one of those. You're like, cool. But they played Hey Jealousy 4 times in that set.
Really?
No clue why. No clue why. It was the big hit on radio, but I'm like, what are you doing? You have more songs. What are you doing? And then it must have been you have to play it a certain amount of times or whatever. Well, I don't know. But then Spin Doctors came out, and again they did their set. Singer's grabbing his leg and bending, gyrating, and it was okay. So that wasn't like the best concert. That's just fond memories. My favorite concert, again, answering the question very roundabout way. My favorite concert, I think, is going to be one that the first time I played House of Blues, and it was the Suspense, the indie rock band. We opened this showcase that Josh Fig had put out called NV Showcase, ENVY, and the NV was capitalized for Nevada.
Yeah, because
this was the big step to like, oh, this is what a real venue. This is what it's like to have a green room, but much less 3 green rooms like the House of Blues has. This is what it's like to have a shower in the green room, and to have folded towels and bottles of water, and having played the upstairs courtyard at Mandalay Bay in the House of Blues, where you don't get nothing for playing that. It was cool, but also the sound, because there's a sound person in the crowd and there's a sound person stage left, and you can hear everything on stage. The crowd can hear everything. And it was one of those, it sucked that we only had, a half hour or whatever our set was to play. That was one of those times where I really wish that we had been like more time. But every act that night, some of which had been on Room 6 later on, were just solid, amazing. Spent most of the time backstage just watching them, going, wow, I'm glad we opened. Wouldn't want to follow. But it was that was my favorite show memory. It's what question I ask a lot of times is, what's your favorite show memory of performing? That's my favorite concert, because it was something I wanted to invite my wife to, as opposed to come see me.
Definitely like a milestone type of thing.
It was. And I wish I had kept some sort of memorabilia from the evening. Funny story. I'm done playing. Every musician has their little rock star checklist of things that you hope happens, that you want to make happen. Kid at the front row says, "Hey, can I get your pick?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man." And I'm feeling like the shit, And then I mentioned it to the guitarist for the next band, Viridian, and he's like, "Oh yeah, he did that to me too." I'm like, so he's just hedging his bets that somebody might be famous. He's just gathering picks. I was like, all right, but still, that was one of those reasons why you just were like, that was so cool. I'm so glad that my wife got to see that happen, and the friends that she brought.
Yeah. I mean, House of Blues is a great venue. It's an incredible sound, and like you said, minus the pillars that kind of stick out in the crowd at like if you're walking around. Other than that, it's a perfect venue, pretty much.
Well, that and you got to put your merch like out in the front where people go through the door,
up the stairs and around the corner.
Yeah, and when a 3-piece band and that's it, you don't have a merch person.
Yeah,
you want a merch person. So.
All right, so let's quickly talk about what's the next things coming up for Room 6. I know you talked about, or we haven't talked about it yet, but you mentioned to me that you have a Twitch channel. You have some other things coming up. Obviously, the May 6th, showcase that you're doing at Hennessy's. But tell me more about what you got coming up other than that, and then obviously the Twitch channel as well.
Well, I will talk about the Twitch channel. I have my own podcast. It's pre-recorded because I got enough going on. it's kind of I hit record and I just talk about shows that are happening in the scene for that week. And it comes out every Monday night at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Room 6 Radio. If you go to Twitch, type in Room 6 Radio, you should see it. It also simultaneously, pardon me, will live stream to the Room 6 LV Twitch channel, which is where like live streams I do at shows and stuff. That's where that goes. And also it'll be posted to the YouTube channel and to where else? I think I posted. Oh, and then it also is posted to Spotify. Now has a video podcasting as a thing. So it goes there. It goes audio wise. It goes to as an audio podcast to all the audio things. So Room 6 Radio is something I'm trying to build. I started it this year at the beginning of the year to really talk about, hey, it's, we're talking about from February 27th through March 5th. Here's the shows that have come to my attention that I've seen or have been told about that are local in Vegas. Go see them. And I'll talk about like maybe here's Monday and Tuesday. And then I'll have a featured artist, a Room 6 artist for that week. And I show them performing here because I have that content. So, why not?
Yeah.
And so that's the big thing I'm working on. That's the every week I know I have this. I'm working on some interviews with some out of town acts that everything about them says they're going to be huge. So I'm excited about that. And then of course the showcase, I'm currently looking for a sponsorship for that to help pay for things. I'm paying the musicians to play. It's just a showcase in name. I'm not asking them to play for exposure, and pay for things like shirts, marketing, maybe a bar tab, all that stuff. So if you are listening to this or watching this and you want to support the local scene, I would really appreciate it if you'd hit me up, one of these two places right here, and let me know that you're interested in maybe sponsoring either with some sort of giveaway prize. I'm going to have a Star Wars costume contest because May the 6th. Why not? Like, I wish I could show you the flyer. I don't have it printed, but the flyer is all about like the drive-in movie. You're watching a lightsaber fight, and it's all about Revenge of the Sixth, because this is, I'm hoping, even though it's Hennessy's, if you've been to Hennessy's, the stage isn't that big. I'm hoping it's going to feel like a bigger concert than it will be.
Yeah, that makes sense. Very cool.
What else?
I was gonna say, do you have any like shout outs that you want to give to anybody before we go today, or anything that you kind of want to?
Yep, I want to shout out Hal Savar, who is putting on the songwriting showcase at Soul Belly Barbecue every third Sunday at from 6 to 9 p.m. That is live streamed as well on my channel, and from that, so many of my interviews come because singer-songwriters, I'm a lot of people's first interview, quite frankly, and I'm also a lot of times their first like semi-decent recording of them performing. I'm not making an album, but they get here. There's something about the essence of a song that is so different when you're not surrounded by like a show and you're not in a place full of people making noise. When you come here and you play your music, it's a raw kind of a thing, and it's the essence of the song, like I said. And I find a lot of times that I hear things in the song that I didn't catch at the show.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and so I want to shout out House of Art for giving me the opportunity to get lots of content from these things, but also he's putting on a showcase that is, they're not paid, but it's a chance to perform a real stage with real lighting and real audio and a sound person in a place that there's going to be people there, and it's like 10 or 11 performers in a night. It's a good thing, and so that's a place where I've gotten up and played a few times, which is always nice to surprise people, like I said.
Very cool. And last thing before we go today, give me one song recommendation that you've heard lately that you think would be a good recommendation for our fans. Rock music, obviously, as it's powered by rock.
Yes. Bear in mind, I review songs for people. I review a lot of music, and I hear a lot of music at these shows. So, boy, oh boy, I could easily just say, oh, the last act that was on. Think here.
But now you're not going to.
I really like I Wish I Were a Demon. Yeah, right.
Yep.
I Wish I Were a Demon by the Dollheads. I like that one. Oh, also, but what's in my head a lot is it's on Friday. Da, da, da.
Oh yeah, Before
Let's see
Friday.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah, Before Friday. I always forget the name.
this
No,
is a good song.
I got it. I'll stick with the in the triumvirate that I mentioned earlier. I'm going to go with Crimson Riot.
Sure.
I'm going to say Gatekeeper.
Okay.
Love that song. I
Yeah.
love the message. I love the energy. And I just, yeah, that song never fails to get me hyped.
Very cool. Well, I think Crimson Riot's going to enjoy this because they've got mentioned twice now on this show. So that's going to be now. I have to get them on the show just so that people will actually know.
Oh,
who
you haven't had
Crimson
one?
Riot are outside
Yes.
of Las Vegas.
Yes, they're a hoot. They're fun to have on the show. Yeah, they hold the record for the longest finished video at 1.5 hours. That's 3 songs and the interview. And let's just say that we had a good time, but editing it, I was like, oh, why did I bring out the Jameson?
Yeah, yeah. I saw
Yeah.
early on in your Room 6 ventures, you had drinking involved, and yeah,
Well, it's I'm not going to invite musicians over and not have something for them. But then again, I've had a lot of people come on and they just don't drink alcohol at all, and I
Yeah.
match them, whatever it is we're doing. But Crimson Riot, 4 of us finished a bottle of Jameson in shots. It was a fun interview.
yeah,
But that was one of those lessons you learn as an interviewer. You're like, yeah. It's also the reason why now I have them generally do the performance first, and then we go do the interview, and I reverse the order. But yeah, it's the alcohol thing is there because it's kind of liquid courage for a lot of these people who I'm their first interview. But it's also, what do you do when you go to someone's house? You hang out in their kitchen, maybe you drink their booze, or you have a drink and you talk. And that's why I wanted that vibe. I've had the opportunity to be like in a studio with a green screen or something, and it just didn't feel right. I just couldn't, do that kind of thing. Even if I'm just doing my own solo videos where I'm reading a script, it felt weird. It felt wrong. I like being able to mess with what's back there. Like that sign right there, that Room 6 sign, just got that from Dennis Geffen, I believe is his last name. Stefan? Dennis from Sector 7G, a punk band in town. And he made that.
Gotcha.
And I'm like, thank you. It's
Yeah.
awesome. I'm going to try and get lights in it and stuff. Anyway, I digress. I'm starting to take over this thing. Sorry.
It's all right. That's how it goes. But I do want to thank you, obviously, for taking the time, obviously, out of your day to come and hang out with us and talk about the Las Vegas local scene, obviously. But Room 6, guys, make sure to go to the show notes below this episode to check all the links out and, go over and give Josh some subscriptions. I know you're pretty close to 500 subscribers on YouTube for your last post, and I think you're like 13 away or something like that. So get him over the hump, guys, and go subscribe to him. Yeah. I think, guys, remember the Powered by Rock podcast is powered by our listeners. If you want to show some support, please be sure to subscribe and share the podcast on social media. You can also make a donation to the podcast if you want to help us keep making awesome episodes with awesome guests. You can find that link in the notes as well. You can see our full video interviews on YouTube and Spotify now, as well. As Josh mentioned, we do have, like you do, Spotify videos available now. And then if you want to check out some of our articles, album reviews, lists, and interviews, go to poweredbyrock.com to read our absolutely free rocking blog and find our merch and gear, as well as you can pick up some items to play and look like a rock legend. That's our show for today. We'll see you soon for the next episode. Until then, rock on.